Welcome to the Hot Girl School, the podcast where we redefine confidence and go way beyond the reflection you see in the mirror.
We're your hosts, Lauren and Danielle, here to empower you to embrace your inner radiance because confidence is so much more than looks.
Whether you're strutting into an event or conquering the boardroom, join us as we explore topics like self-love, inner strength, and owning your unique journey to confidence.
So grab your favorite drinkie and turn up that volume because you're about to unleash your true potential.
All right, so welcome back to another Tuesday at the Hot Girl School. Today we are going to talk about all things friendship, right? And one thing that we want to explore is why do we give friendships passes that we don't give in romantic relationships? Why are we a little more lenient there, do you think?
And I would like to add my own things that I've struggled with, which is why do we tend to not we have no problem breaking up with someone while it might be challenging, but we don't necessarily end a friendship if it no longer serves us. We kind of ghost them. There's not really a nice, easy, pleasant way to break up with a friend, but it's a necessary thing in a romantic relationship. And then you have one other thing that you want to add for the list thing that I love.
Yeah, so we want to talk all things friendship today, right? Losing friends, why we think friends are important, why we give passes, the difference between because you have a friendship in your romantic friendship, right? And then also I find it fascinating that we have this massive list for our romantic partner, right? Like these must-haves, these check boxes. And are we being intentional in making a list like that for friends? And should we? That's the question we should explore today.
I don't think anybody educates people on either of these things. Nobody sits down and says, these are the red flags when it comes to romantic relationships. These are the red flags when it comes to friendships. We don't have those things. We kind of just stumble along the way and realize in hindsight and feel weird that we no longer want this person in our lives. And I know that you and I have done a lot of self-development. And when you do self-development, who you are elevates, and the people around you, if you're not changing your friendship circle, they kind of stay down here. And once you have to do that first time, that first layer of shedding, it's hard.
So hard. It's so hard. It's like it can feel like a death. It's like a mourning. And then you also kind of go through when you lose a friend specifically. I have, in fact, gone through you're like, why or what happened, or it just things change and evolve, right? People come in and out of your life, but it can feel really tough to either get rid of a friend or to lose a friend.
Or to find a new place in your life for a friend. Sometimes the friendship is I have a girlfriend who one of her hometown, one of her growing up, her childhood friends, good Lord, one of her childhood friends, it's like she just keeps trying to make it work, but she comes back and she's like, it's just a cluster. We're just not ever going to be the same. We're on two very different places in our lives. And to hear somebody constantly come back, it's like I feel for her. She wants to keep the friendship. Because the caveat to that, in my opinion, is that people tend to hang on to the number of years that they have been friends for.
Yep.
And because that number is a big number, or maybe it feels good to say, well, we've been friends since we were 5. Those are the things that to me should not be a reason to stay friends with someone. You have very long-standing friendships in your life. Does that hinder or help a decision in anyone maybe you've had to let go?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, I don't think the number of years don't necessarily matter. Sure, it's like, gosh, we have this history. So for me, when there's a lot of years, it means that you know them really well, typically, right? You've gone through things, you've had big life moments, you've had kids, you've got married, things like that. But for me, it's like, what is this adding value? Is this making me feel good? It's like an energy thing, right? So does this person still make me feel good to be around them? And you're going to go through shifts and twists and turns in life, and it's okay if it doesn't. It doesn't mean you have to get rid of them. It doesn't mean you can't be friends. It means that you need to understand the friendship. So because we're so big on takeaways, I think it would be really important for everyone listening, I mean, us included, take inventory of the friendships that you have right now. Are they making you feel good? Are they bringing value? Are they pulling you down? Are they making you not do something that's part of your goals right now and you're giving in because they're like, let's go to dinner or let's do this? If they're not being supportive, then it might be a time where we put a little bit of pause there and we reevaluate and adjust and add some new boundaries.
Absolutely. That is hard to do, and I'm gonna give a very easy example. When you're not drinking, because I like to go out and have a drink with my friends, when a friend who I drink with will text or call and say, "Hey, like, let's go get dinner," it's like the first thing out of my mouth. I'm not drinking right now, so if you wanna go get drinks, we're going to have to do it in this time frame. And a part of me is very proud of myself because I'm standing up for what
Yeah.
I want. The other part of me kinda it
Okay,
shows me
let's take a
where
moment. Let's give you a clap because that is hard to do. So good for you.
it's so hard, and I
Yeah.
honestly I'm sure you've used that line. I'm sure you've used that line. "You feel silly." Like, do I really have to say to my friend that I'm not drinking right now? That's kind of like it should be unnecessary, but in my life, I like to have, like, departments for friends. So you have your drinking friends,
Yeah.
you have your party friends. I'm sure you have your mom friends. Like, I just have different types of friendships with so many different people. And when you have the layers of all the different friendships, that tells you who you can tell things to, where you stand, can you call them in an emergency? And so, anyway, so that's kind of how I decide where friends stand. I lost my train of
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, and, it actually made me think of something while you were sharing that, and that's huge. That's something that's hard to do, and everyone should do it, is we're telling people, take inventory of your friends, but it's also really important to take inventory of the type of friend you are. You know what I mean? Like one of the things I love about you and our friendship is you listen. And like today, you're like, hey, how did the second drop off go? My daughter just started preschool. It's been a week. And you're like, how did it go? Right. So, what kind of friend are you being? Are you showing up? Are you being a supportive? When your friend says, hey, I'm not drinking right now, or I'm really trying to work on these goals and make these things happen in my life, are they supporting that and being like, hey, no problem. Let's go to aerial yoga instead, or let's try something new. Is there anything you've been wanting to try? Right. So, two takeaways for us is inventory of your friends and paying attention to how they're making you feel and how they're supporting you. And then also inventory on yourself. How are you showing up as a friend?
Ooh, to me, that is such a big one. How and what does that mean to show up as a friend? Because this kind of leads into the love languages. I think we all
Yeah.
act in the way that we want somebody to treat us. But if you don't know that person's love language and like yours is services and mine is time, you're going to keep doing services for me and I'm just going to want to spend time with you. And now we have like this miscommunication, but it never gets discussed. And it just kind of feels like the friendship isn't a good fit. But when you've each done some work on yourself and you're aware of those things, not only do you give it a few extra thoughts, but you bring it to the attention and say, "Hey, I'm a time person and it really means a lot to me if we could just spend some time together." And that's huge to know where you
Yeah.
stand and to bring it to
Yes.
somebody's attention. Like that's a hard thing to do and kind of a weird conversation, especially if it's just a drinking friendship.
100%. Those aren't deep, right? Usually if it's just a
Mm-mm.
drinking friendship, those are pretty surface level friends, right? We're not talking about our sex
Can I
life
say
or
one thing?
dating or hardships. Yeah.
The ironic part about the fact that deep friendships don't typically come with drinking relationships is that sometimes the deepest conversations you have are when you're drunk. Right? Even
Irony,
though
right?
it's not somebody you're close with, it's because you've had alcohol, so now you have, like, these moments that you're
Truth
just
serum,
exposing your soul.
right?
Kind of funny, but it doesn't translate to sobriety, I will say that, it does not translate into sober moments
Yeah.
with those friends. Sorry to interrupt.
Well, and it comes down to communication, right? Communication is so huge and being able sometimes we give up on things too easily, especially in today's society because there's just like endless amounts of people you can engage with through social media and things like that sometimes there could be something really good there or you think of a trait that you're like, god, I really admire that about them, it's wonderful, but this and this. Well, maybe ask yourself, have I expressed to them how I want them to show up for me, or like, hey, it bothers me when you don't notice this, or I really appreciate these types of things. And when you do that, it makes me feel good. Don't be afraid to we do that in a romantic relationship. We tend to not do that in a friendship. We kind of just stay silent about it. So my curiosity is like, could we have way better friendships if we started showing up in some of the ways we do romantically?
Agree. There also needs to be a little bit of like I've put in X amount of effort, or maybe you just feel tapped out from trying with somebody for so long. So, like, something I did for a while, which I've stopped because I felt like it might have been a little aggressive, but like, okay, plenty of girls have a tendency to just be like, "Oh my god, I miss you. Let's hang out soon." And nothing's ever planned. And I am like such a follow through
Yep.
person. If you tell me in 10 years to be somewhere at 11 a.m., I will be there without talking to you for 10 years. That's just who I am. And so I would kind of follow back up with these people, and it would always be in text because people don't like to chat on the phone anymore these days. And I would say, "Okay, I'm free
Except for
next
us.
Tuesday," except for us, we love the phone. I would say, "Okay, I'm free next Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday for happy hour. Just name a day and place, and I'll be there." I don't like to choose restaurants, so I always put it in the other person's court, and they never respond. And that tells me where I stand with you, and that's okay. I'm
Right.
not trying to be your best friend, but it's almost like I can take this person and just move them down a few rungs because they didn't respond. They didn't take the time. Clearly, they don't care. The friendship is not as important to them as maybe I thought or hoped it would be. And that's okay. It just was the feedback I needed, and I move on.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Is like people will show you through their actions where you stand with them.
Hmm.
And it's your job to believe them and not like keep putting your subjecting yourself to behavior that doesn't make you feel good. So you have a lot of onus in a friendship, and I think friendships are just they're so important because I'm married. I've been with my husband for a really long time. He's definitely my best friend. There's certain things that significant others just can't fulfill for you that friendships can. And for me, I'm at a time in my life where I'm really intentional about my friendships and where I spend my time and who I'm spending it with. And I have a lot of things that I want to do. So I want to surround myself with people that support those goals and are okay with me turning something down or not going to dinner or being like, I'm not into girls' trips right now or girls' dinners right now because I'm focused on making my life better. And if friends can't support that, were they really your friends to begin with? Or were you just convenient for them because you said yes to all the things?
I think that's a great question. I think it's a little bit deeper than that. And right? It's
Yeah.
kind of like that saying, a person comes into your life for a season. What is it? A reason, a season, or a lifetime. And then I added, or they
Yep.
be a leaving. Because it all just like, you never know what somebody's reason is. And sometimes, like, moving to Miami, I had a couple girls that like I was just friends with because it was convenient. And once I took a step back and was like, I actually don't really care for them. They don't make me feel good, right? I don't want to say too much. Then you just kind of figure out, and that's a perfect example. Like, I feel bad that I've kind of ghosted these people specifically. And you and I have had this conversation. What do you say to somebody when the friendship no longer fits? And you've given great advice because you, are unemotionally attached as a third neutral party. And so it was easy for you to come up with something. And I thought about it and I sat with it and I realized it still is going to be hard to deliver. It's not easy
Yeah.
and nobody wants to hear it. And I think one of the friendship things is not taking things personally because it usually has to do with the other person, not you. Is that what I'm trying to say? Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I
It
mean,
has to
I
do
think
with the
in
other person.
general,
Yeah.
right? Like building up that muscle of not taking things personally everywhere is important, but it comes down to communication, right? And sometimes like I always say, like in business, especially, like get really comfortable being uncomfortable and having tough conversations because they're always going to be there. And you can practice that in your personal life too through friendship, tough conversations, through significant other tough conversations. And what starts to happen is the more you do it, the more confident you become in it. And then the more secure you feel about yourself because you're honoring your boundaries and what makes you feel good.
And you're confident with the delivery. You know how to choose the words, you know how to say it calmly, you know how to maneuver yourself in this difficult situation. I mean, it takes a lot of practice and it takes a lot of behind the scenes work in my opinion, before
Yeah.
you actually get to the delivery of it.
Yeah, so I think, like a tangible maybe that we could give is, let's say you're working on a big goal and a friend isn't being supportive of that. The best way to have the conversation is to be truthful. Take them to dinner. Don't do it through a text. Don't do it over the phone. If they're a close friend with you, have enough respect for them and the friendship to sit down and have a face-to-face discussion about it and just say, "Hey, look, I love you. I love our friendship. I am working really hard at XYZ right now. And in order for me to accomplish that, it's going to require me to make shifts in what you're used to seeing from me as a friend. And I need you to be supportive of that. And if you can't be supportive of that, that's okay. Just tell me, but it's going to shift our friendship. It's going to require us to not see each other as much because I need to do these things. And if you want to show up and support me not drinking, for example, and do other activities, I am so down." And if that friend hears that, you're being very clear, you're expressing what your goal is, and they're still not supportive or they're giving you a hard time or they say they'll be supportive and then after the fact in a moment of showing taking action and putting action behind their words they don't, they're showing you their cards and you've already established, if you can't support that, it means this for us. So then the next conversation is easier because you just tie down to the face-to-face one you had.
Yeah, that's it's I think the hardest part of what you said is when they don't respect where you're at because maybe they're not as business minded as you are and they just keep like berating you. I haven't seen you in so long. Why aren't you paying attention to me? I just want to see and you really have to like stay gracious in those moments. And a part of me instantly says, "Okay, you're not my people anymore if you can't respect where I'm at because if you said that to me, I would be more than happy to like
Right.
bring you a coffee or to like get you some pencils for your notebook if you're taking a lot of notes or whatever it is. Do something sweet, do something thoughtful to show you that I get it. And guess what? I'm going to be there at the end of this. You're not going to be in this work phase forever. And I think that's the key for me is to see where you are when I get through this. Are you still going to be there? Another thing that I wanted to bring up is when you move cities. Obviously, this is more pertinent for me
Oh
right now,
yeah.
but you didn't do this too long ago. When you move cities and you have these great friends, does the friendship continue or are you totally forgotten about? What was your experience
Oh
leaving
yeah. I
Denver?
mean, yeah, I have a best friend that lives in Denver. She is a soul sister of mine. I can't wait for you to meet her. You will love her. And that those are, sometimes you meet people and you're like, "Yes, you're my person." Like you and I, we had an instant friend connection. We were like, "Yes, we are aligned. Let's go." Right? And I think those ones tend to end up everlasting because there's just like this understanding of one another, which is something that sometimes is hard in those longer standing relationships where you have more years to it. And it also depends where when you meet, right? But to your question, Tara and I are closer than ever. And we have lived apart. I left Denver to California in 2019. So it's been 5 years since we've lived in the same state and we are probably closer than ever.
And that takes an effort. I just want to like asterisk that. It requires phone calls, it requires FaceTimes, it requires visits. It's a totally different type
Yeah.
of friendship. It's not just like, "Hey, I'm have the next 3 hours free, let's meet up real quick," which is obviously amazing when that happens because it's convenient. And sometimes you just crave those friends, you know? You're like, "The only person
Yeah.
I want to see right now is Danielle and she's like all the way in Arizona." And that makes it hard. But
Mhm.
it just requires, like I said, it just requires a different effort.
Totally. Yeah. I want you to repeat because it was so good because you added "or leaving." So, what was your slogan? It's like you changed the quote that everybody hears about people coming in or leaving your life. Say it one more time because it was like you moved through it fast and it was so good.
I just said, people come into your life for a reason, a season, a lifetime, or they be leaving.
Or they be leaving,
Or
right?
they be leaving. And
Yeah.
it's true,
So,
like sometimes people are just like we said, it's just for right now, or sometimes it's to learn an experience. Like I have a girlfriend who we're still close, but when I met her, she was kind of coming out of a toxic relationship. And I felt with
mm,
every fiber in my being that I was there to show her the way. Oh my god, I could cry. And no
Sure.
offense to her, she
Aw,
was not in a place where she wanted to hear it, and she still to this day, I mean, that was probably 2018. She still to this day, like, talks about that specific ex-boyfriend, and I get it, it's super hard to get over those. I felt like my job, no matter how hard I tried, maybe it wasn't going to get through. It was just like in one ear and out the other because the student has to be ready for the teacher, and I felt like I was very much the teacher because I had a lot to offer because I was coming fresh out of it. But I had done it about a
sure.
year. Excuse me. I had done about a year of self development at that point and learned a lot and took
Mhm.
the time and elevated who I was as a person. And I got to say, once you start elevating as a person and you become awake, that's, I think, another shift in the friendships, right? So you have just maybe you're growing in business, maybe you're growing out of drinking and partying, whatever it is that you're growing out of. Once you get to that point of being awake, that is a whole separate level of how you, I don't want to say deal with people, but kind of how you deal with people. Because when you're awake, you don't have much tolerance. You know how to handle it, but you don't have much tolerance for people who aren't awake. You're awake?
I'm awake. I'm awake. I think too, like, what it comes down to is, are they growing with you, right? You can compare it to a significant other too. The friendships that are gonna be lifetime and long lasting, they're gonna grow with you and evolve with you and support your growth and evolution. And I think it's okay for I think it's hard, but it should be normalized that, hey, sometimes you're gonna be the student and that friend is in your life to help teach you through that hard time, like the example you just gave. Sometimes you're gonna be the teacher. And it's okay to have that give and take because what goes around comes around, right? And sometimes a
Mhm.
friend comes in to help you, you show up to help them, and it's okay if it doesn't last forever. It's meant to be that season, that teaching, those lessons, and then you have those takeaways that can carry you into a new friendship that is that much better because of your experience previously. But I think that it's especially for, like, younger, like, high school girls and thing like, girls are hard, girls' relationships are hard, but just
Yes.
kind of walk away knowing that, like, it's okay if friendships don't last. Not all of them are going to, it's never gonna happen, and, be okay with that.
Absolutely. It's sometimes there's nothing wrong. It's I think it's easier to
Yeah.
spot in a romantic relationship because it's like I'm just not sexually attracted to you. And that reason is good enough. But when it comes to a friendship, when there's no reason, and we're not talking about like you had a fight, we're just talking about growing out of somebody and your life is changing and maybe that person's falling behind a little bit. So it's a I think this kind of takes us back to the list. And I think that's such a great idea to consider what it is that you're looking for in a friend and making a tangible list. And you can go as far as, sticking it in your drawer and not looking at it for a few years because you wrote
Yeah.
it down, you let it go. It's manifesting, right? And seeing what that brings. But when somebody comes into your life and you get that, I just wanna be friends with that person. I mean, I have literally gone up to girls and been like, "I like you and I wanna be your friend." And it's fine. And they're like
Yeah.
usually I add, "I think you're really pretty." That's usually my opener. "I think you're really pretty. I just wanna be your friend." And the friendship begins because you start with a compliment and, we just like each other and years come out of that. And so having the list to me is kind of a cool thing because as you get older, I'm sure you've seen it on Instagram, those quotes that say like my friendship is now a period or my circle of friends is now a period. Have you seen that?
Yeah, smaller.
Yeah, that's what it means. But it says a
Yep.
period, no? Well, it has like a
I don't
literal
know if I've
dot
seen
on it.
that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's what it means. My
You're gonna have
friendships
to
are
send
now
me that
smaller,
one.
which
Yeah.
kind of means um that you just have like fewer friends, quality friends. The relationships are more intimate. Maybe the topics of conversation become far more personal than you would have. And the other thing that you and I wanted to discuss was, are you a group person or are you a one-on-one person? And you said that yours has changed.
Yeah, yeah, mine's totally changed. I used to absolutely be a group person. Like, I thrived in large groups. I loved big girls trips. I am definitely more of a one-on-one quality time. It's hard to get be build I can't talk. It's hard to get below the surface when you're in a big group setting and have those deeper connections, and right now that means more to me, like, I wanna know your heart, I wanna know your struggles, I wanna know what you like, what excites you, like, how I can show up for you, and because friendships are important, and it's you have to make effort to cultivate good ones, and it's hard to do that in a group setting, so I'm like, "Give me all the one-on-ones, give me all the smaller things, and let's dive deep."
Yeah, I'm like that. I like want to sit down and be like, "So, tell me everything about you." Like, let's start from the most private things all the way out to like, I want to know your history. I want to know about your relationships. That's just how I am. And I think it probably offends and possibly even scares some people. But I feel like I can just
Yeah.
understand who you are, why you operate the way you do, why you function the way you do, why you think the way you do. And it just I need that background information in order to be your friend. I know that sounds wild, but it just that's just what I gravitate towards. I like go straight for the heart.
Yeah, I feel like we did that so quickly in our friendship,
Mhm.
and it really helps us because there's no matter what, like, no friendship is perfect. You're gonna have days where you're like, "Oh, she's bugging me today," or "She's doing that thing that she knows she does, and I love her for it because she's aware of it and she's told me, but it's happening, and that doesn't mean it's not gonna bother you, but at least you have an understanding about it," right? So you're like, I just know that that's how she is. Like, I'm a huge researcher person. So, like, in business with Lori, if we take notes or send stuff, I send like all the things. And she's like, "Can I get the cliff notes? Like,
Yeah.
I don't
I
want to
just
read
need
this
like 5
whole
bullet
thing."
points.
And that's just, but she knows because I told her beforehand, "Hey, this is how I am. This is how I operate." So instead of being like, "What the fuck is this email, Danielle?" She'll just
Mhm.
call me and be like, "Hey, can I get the cliff notes here?" And we
Yep.
have this mutual understanding because of communication.
And our favorite tests that we've taken. That helps too, but I don't
Yeah,
think
the
you
human
go
design.
arog like doling out tests like, "Okay, you need to take these 5 friendship tests.
Yes,
You need to
take
take
this
these
one.
5 personality tests." Could you imagine?
So good.
But once I find
I
out
know.
somebody
So and
is
there's so
in
many I feel like Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think we have a delay on our thing, so anywho,
No.
um, no, I was just gonna say that we went through, like, so many different avenues that we probably could have even gone deeper on, right? And there could
Mhm.
probably be additional episodes just on these, but maybe we give some takeaways for the listeners on some of the things we talked about, like evaluating your friendship, taking inventory of it, really taking inventory of, like, you as a friend, because if you want a certain type of friendship, you better be willing to show up that way too. And making a list, right? What are some other ones that we could add for them?
Understanding if you're a one-on-one person or a group person. I think it's so trendy
Mhm.
to be a group person. I'm not a group person, and it's so trendy. You know, when these girls go on like 20-person bachelorette parties, I can't help myself. I just roll my eyes. Like I'm like there is no space for me in there. That's not it's just not what I want to do. It's not how I want to spend my time. But how can I show up for that and still have fun and not be a party pooper? So understanding where you are, like what you're willing to work on, what situations you're willing to maybe bend your boundaries for. How important is that person
Yeah.
to you? What else did we say? We said the one where like understanding that maybe you're not as important to somebody else as you think they are, and just pull them down a few rings on the friendship ladder. Don't take things personally, which I feel like that is a whole episode in and of itself. But if you can grow a thicker skin, you will be much happier in life.
In all aspects of your life. Yes.
Hmm.
So, take inventory of how you're showing up as a friend, start working on not taking things personal, evaluate what type of friend you are. It's okay, like, even if Lori and I are both no longer group people, we're one-on-one, but that doesn't mean we can't go to group settings and still have a good time and enjoy ourselves, right? And just feeling it out, like, it should be easy. The relationship should be easy. Don't give your friends a bunch of passes that you wouldn't allow in, say, a romantic relationship. And we just challenge you, I think, to really be intentional about the friendships that you're developing, because your time is so valuable, and who you surround yourself with is really important. It really affects all facets of your life.
Absolutely. So let us know what it is that you want to know about. Maybe we forgot something. We just want to hear your 2 cents when it comes to friendships. This is a very complex, it's not necessarily complicated. There's just a lot of layers to friendships. We want to hear what your thoughts and opinions are. and share anything with us. We're always open.
Yeah, so connect with us on Instagram, LinkedIn, not don't do that. Instagram, TikTok,
Don't do that.
Spotify, Apple, wherever you want. Just come chat with us.
Just not
And
LinkedIn,
I would
please.
love to hear if they have what's that?
Just not LinkedIn, please.
Just not LinkedIn. You can connect with me on there. We're just not going to be doing any hot girl school stuff there. But I would also love to hear some funny stories. Like if you have any good stories that you think that would be helpful on breaking up with friends, tips on how to do it, tips on how to talk, just funny falling outs or things that you think people would enjoy, share them with us.
And I'm most curious on the verbiage that you've used in different situations because we all have our the way that we look at something, and it's hard to think outside of like, well, I don't see any other way to say this, even though we have a whole language to use. So I would love to hear what words you use to get your point across when you are in a difficult situation with a friendship. So I think that about wraps it up. We could probably go on and on forever on this one. So thank you for tuning in, and school is out.
We'll see you next Tuesday. Have a great week.